My name is Carla, and what I'm about to share with you will change everything you thought you knew about prayer. I'm a high school English teacher from New York, and on September 3rd, 2023, I experienced death for 6 minutes and 13 seconds. During those moments, Jesus revealed profound truths about prayer, especially about how we should communicate with God and what many people misunderstand about talking to Him. What He showed me was completely different from the teachings we've received. But before we begin, please let me know where you're listening from. It would be wonderful to feel connected, even though we're physically apart. And don't forget to like and comment on your thoughts regarding this near-death experience testimony. Let's have an open and honest discussion so we can all learn together on this channel. Enjoy listening. The day everything changed started off normally. I was chaperoning a student field trip to the Science Museum. We were in the electricity demonstration area, watching how lightning works. I remember noticing how engaged the students were, their faces lighting up as they watched the Tesla coil demonstrations. None of us expected what was about to happen. There was an equipment malfunction. Later, they would discover that several safety protocols had failed simultaneously, something that should have been statistically impossible. I was standing closest to the apparatus when it happened. The last thing I remember was a blinding flash and a sensation as if every cell in my body was on fire. Doctors later told my family that I had been struck by an electrical surge, equivalent to a lightning bolt. My heart stopped instantly. For 6 minutes and 13 seconds, I was clinically dead while they desperately tried to revive me. But during those 6 minutes, time didn't exist where I went. And what Jesus showed me about prayer during that time, it changes everything. The moment my heart stopped, I found myself outside my body. I could see everything happening below. Chaos, screaming students, paramedics working frantically to restart my heart. But I felt no fear, no pain. Instead, I was overwhelmed by a peace so profound, it's indescribable. Then came the light. But calling it light doesn't do it justice. It was more like being surrounded by pure love, complete acceptance, and perfect understanding. And in that light, I saw Him. Jesus. Not the Jesus from Sunday school images or church windows. This was Jesus in His full glory, yet somehow still completely approachable. And I will never forget His eyes. They held the weight of the universe and the tenderness of a parent's love all at once. "Carla," He said, "you've been asking to understand prayer, haven't you?" He was right. For months before the accident, I had felt increasingly frustrated with my prayer life. Something felt off, mechanical, empty. I had been going through the motions, saying all the right things, but feeling disconnected. "What you're about to see," Jesus continued, "will shock you. Most of my children have completely misunderstood how to talk with the Father. They've turned conversation into performance. They've made simple things complicated. Let me show you what prayer really is." What happened next was beyond anything I could have imagined. Jesus began showing me scenes. Not like watching a movie, but like being inside the experiences themselves. I could feel what people were feeling as they prayed, see what heaven saw, and understand what was truly happening in the spiritual realm during prayer. "Watch this," Jesus said, showing me a woman praying in her kitchen while washing dishes. She thinks her prayers aren't good enough because she doesn't use fancy words or kneel properly. I could feel her insecurity, her worry that God wouldn't take her seriously because her prayers weren't proper enough. Then Jesus showed me how heaven received her prayers. They were like beautiful music, pure and clear, reaching straight to God's heart. "This," Jesus said, "is what real prayer looks like. No pretense, no performance, just an honest conversation with a loving Father." The difference between what we think prayer should be and what Jesus showed me prayer actually is was shocking. Everything I thought I knew about prayer was about to be completely transformed. Jesus then showed me something that made me gasp. It was like seeing two realities at once. What we think happens when we pray and what truly happens. "This is where most people get it completely wrong," He said. He showed me a scene of people in a church, praying what seemed like beautiful, eloquent prayers. From our earthly perspective, they looked perfect, heads bowed reverently, using sophisticated religious language, quoting scripture perfectly. But then Jesus showed me the spiritual reality. "Look closer," he said, and what I saw stunned me. Many of those seemingly perfect prayers were barely reaching the ceiling. They were blocked by invisible barriers that looked like dark clouds. "These," Jesus explained, "are prayers blocked by unforgiveness, pride, and performance." But then he showed me something that brought tears to my eyes. At the back of the church was an elderly woman, simply whispering, "Father, I need you. Help me." Her prayer cut through everything like a beam of pure light, reaching straight to God's heart. "This is what I've been trying to tell my children," Jesus said. "Prayer isn't about the words, it's about the heart." He then took me deeper into heaven's perspective. I saw prayers rising from all over the earth. Some were simple whispers from children, others were desperate cries from people in crisis, and still others were quiet tears from those who had no words at all. What shocked me was seeing which prayers were most powerful. "Watch this," Jesus said, showing me a scene that would forever change my understanding of prayer. He showed me two people praying about the same situation. One was on their knees, reciting every prayer they could think of, bargaining with God, making promises. The other was simply sitting quietly, saying, "Father, I trust you with this." The difference in how heaven received these prayers was stunning. The first prayer was like someone shouting through a wall, the words bouncing back. But the second prayer, it was like a direct line to God's heart. "This is what I meant," Jesus explained, "when I taught about not using vain repetitions. Many of my children think more words means more power. They couldn't be more wrong." Then Jesus showed me something that literally took my breath away. He showed me how heaven sees worry-filled prayers. I could see people praying, but simultaneously entertaining every possible worst-case scenario in their minds. Their prayers were like radio signals full of static. "This," Jesus said, "is why I taught about daily bread. Watch what happens when they trust for today alone." He showed me how prayers transformed when people let go of tomorrow's worries and simply trusted God for today's needs. The difference was like night and day. But the most shocking revelation came when Jesus showed me what happens when we hold on to unforgiveness while praying. I saw prayers that were powerful and pure get tangled in what looked like dark webs, the unforgiveness in people's hearts actually creating barriers to their own prayers. "This is why I emphasized forgiveness so strongly," Jesus explained. "It's not just about the other person. Unforgiveness chains my children to the very things they're praying to be freed from." He showed me people praying for peace while holding on to grudges, praying for healing while harboring bitterness, praying for breakthrough while clinging to resentment. Then he showed me what happened when they chose to forgive. The transformation was incredible. It was like watching chains shatter and prison doors swing open. "Tell them," Jesus said, "that forgiveness isn't about the other person deserving it. It's about freeing their own hearts to receive all that I want to give them." Then Jesus revealed something about gratitude that completely changed my understanding. He showed me how thanksgiving in prayer does something powerful in the spiritual realm. "Watch this," he said, showing me two different scenarios. In the first, someone started praying by listing all their problems and needs. Their prayer was heavy, burdened. But in the second scenario, someone began with thanksgiving, acknowledging God's faithfulness before presenting their needs. The difference was remarkable. The grateful prayer created what looked like a pathway of light, making way for God's answers. "This is why David began so many psalms with thanksgiving," Jesus explained. "It's not because I need to be reminded of my goodness. It's because gratitude opens my children's hearts to receive what I'm already wanting to give them." But perhaps the most shocking revelation came when Jesus showed me how heaven sees our timing versus God's timing in prayer. He showed me prayers that people thought were unanswered, but from heaven's perspective, I could see massive gears turning, pieces being moved into place, and answers being crafted in ways the people praying couldn't imagine. "Look at this," Jesus said, showing me someone praying for a job. From Earth's perspective, nothing was happening. But in the spiritual realm, I could see God orchestrating circumstances, moving people into place, and preparing something far better than what the person was asking for. "This is why patience in prayer is so crucial," Jesus explained. "My children often think I'm not answering when I'm actually working on something far better than what they're asking for." He showed me prayers that were answered differently than requested, because God saw dangers or problems that the person praying couldn't see. I watched as God redirected paths, protected people from what they thought they wanted, and guided them toward what they truly needed. Tell them, Jesus said, that every prayer is heard. Every tear is counted. But my love for them is too great to simply give them everything they ask for in the way they ask for it. Then Jesus showed me something about spiritual warfare and prayer that left me stunned. My words are not just a magical formula. It's about standing firm in the truth of who I am and the promises I've made. However, the most profound realization came when Jesus revealed how he prays for us. I witnessed him interceding before the Father, and the love and passion in his prayers brought me to my knees. This is how deeply we care about each prayer, he said. Every word, every tear, every silent cry of your heart, we cherish them all. As my time with Jesus continued, he shared more profound insights about prayer. He showed me how many people pray as if they need to convince God to be kind to them, unaware that he already desires to bless them. Watch this, Jesus said, showing me someone begging God for something he was already eager to give them. The issue wasn't God's willingness. It was their inability to receive because they were too focused on their own attempts to persuade God. This is why I taught about your Father, knowing what you need before you ask, Jesus explained. Prayer isn't about informing me of your needs or persuading me to be kind to you. It's about opening your heart to accept what I'm already ready to give. Then Jesus showed me the power of simplicity in prayer, challenging everything I had been taught. He revealed a series of scenes illustrating how we often complicate what was meant to be simple. Watch carefully, he said, presenting two contrasting images. In one, someone was meticulously crafting what they thought was the perfect prayer, choosing each word with care, concerned about getting the format right. In the other, a child was simply speaking to God as naturally as they would talk to their parents. Which one do you think reaches my heart more directly? Jesus asked, though he knew I already understood the answer. The child's simple prayer was like a pure beam of light, while the carefully crafted prayer got tangled in the person's own expectations and fears. This is what I meant when I said, "You must become like little children," Jesus explained. It's not about intelligence or maturity. It's about trust and simplicity. He then showed me something that transformed my understanding of the Lord's Prayer. I gave them this prayer not as a formula to repeat, Jesus said, but as a pattern to show how straightforward and direct prayer can be. He walked me through each part of the prayer, revealing its true meaning in a way that left me astonished by how much we had complicated it. When he explained Our Father, I realized how many people miss the intimacy in those words, treating God as a distant authority figure instead of a loving parent. Look at this, Jesus said, showing me how heaven sees it when someone sincerely prays, Our Father, from their heart. The connection was instant and powerful, like a child running into their parents' arms. This is what prayer was always meant to be. Then he showed me something about hallowed be thy name that completely changed my perspective. Many think this is about using special religious language, Jesus explained. But watch what true reverence looks like. He showed me people sitting in awe of God's goodness, their hearts filled with wonder and gratitude. Their reverence wasn't about words at all. It was about recognizing who God is and responding with love and awe. Now watch this, Jesus said, showing me what happens when we pray, Thy kingdom come, Thy will be done. He revealed how many people say these words while still holding tightly to their own plans and desires. But then he showed me what it looks like when someone genuinely surrenders to God's will. The difference was staggering. When someone prayed with true surrender, their prayer created what appeared to be an open channel between heaven and earth. I could see God's purposes flowing freely through their surrendered heart. This is why I showed you my prayer in Gethsemane, Jesus said. Even facing the cross, I trusted the Father's will above my own desires. This is the kind of trust I want my children to have. Then Jesus shared something about spiritual warfare and prayer that I had never understood before. Watch what happens when someone prays to deliver us from evil, he said. I saw how this simple prayer, when prayed with faith, created what seemed to be a shield of light around the person. Many of my children try to fight spiritual battles with their own strength, Jesus explained. They don't realize that simple, trusting prayer is their most powerful weapon. He showed me people engaging in what they thought was spiritual warfare, shouting, commanding, and using specific formulas. Then he showed me someone simply praying, "Father, protect me." The difference in effectiveness was astonishing. It's not about the volume or the words, Jesus said. It's about trusting in the Father's protection and authority. One of the most surprising revelations came when Jesus showed me how heaven perceives prayers of desperation versus prayers of faith. "Watch this," he said, showing me two people praying about similar situations. One prayed from a place of panic and fear, trying to persuade God to help them. The other prayed from a place of trust, even though their situation was just as difficult. The difference in how these prayers were received was remarkable. "Tell them," Jesus said, "that I'm not moved by their desperation. I'm moved by their faith. Even faith as small as a mustard seed is more powerful than a mountain of fear-filled words." Then he showed me something about persistent prayer that completely changed my understanding. Many think persistence in prayer is about wearing God down, Jesus explained. Watch what true persistence looks like. He showed me someone praying the same prayer day after day, but instead of growing discouraged, their faith actually grew stronger with each prayer. "This is what I meant by ask, seek, knock," Jesus said. "It's not about convincing the Father, it's about your faith being strengthened through the asking." I saw how each prayer was like a seed being planted, and persistent prayer was like faithfully watering those seeds. The person praying couldn't see it, but from heaven's perspective, something beautiful was growing. "This is why I told the parable of the persistent widow," Jesus explained. "Not because God is like the unjust judge who needs to be worn down, but because persistence in prayer builds faith and character in my children." Then Jesus showed me something about corporate prayer that left me amazed. "Watch what happens when my children pray together in unity," he said. I saw how prayers joined together created what looked like a beautiful harmony in the spiritual realm. "But look closer," Jesus said. "True unity in prayer isn't about saying the same words. It's about hearts being aligned with my purposes." He showed me prayer meetings where everyone said the same words, but their hearts were disconnected. Then he showed me small groups of people praying simply, but in true unity. The difference was incredible. "This is why I said, 'Where 2 or 3 are gathered in my name,'" Jesus explained. "It's not about the number. It's about the unity of hearts seeking me together." As my time with Jesus was drawing to a close, he shared one final shocking truth about prayer. "Watch this," he said, showing me how heaven sees prayers of thanksgiving versus prayers of complaint. I saw how thanksgiving in prayer actually created what looked like doorways for God's blessings to flow through, but complaints and grumbling created barriers that blocked those same blessings. "This is why Paul said to give thanks in all circumstances," Jesus explained. "Not because you feel thankful, but because thanksgiving is a declaration of trust in my goodness, even when you can't see it." Then Jesus showed me even more shocking truths about prayer that I need to share. He revealed a series of powerful insights that completely transform my understanding of how heaven receives our prayers. "Carla," Jesus said, "watch this carefully. This is what most people never understand about the power of their words in prayer." He showed me how different types of prayers create different spiritual atmospheres. I saw prayers of doubt creating what seemed like fog around people, while prayers of faith, even simple ones, cut through everything like beams of pure light. "Notice," Jesus said, showing me a scene that broke my heart, "how many of my children pray from a place of unworthiness. I saw people praying but constantly apologizing, feeling like they weren't good enough to approach God. This is what religious spirits have done to my children," Jesus explained with deep sadness. "They've convinced them they need to earn the right to talk to their own Father." Then he showed me what prayer looks like when someone truly understands their position as God's child. The difference was staggering. Their prayers weren't timid or apologetic. They were bold, confident, yet still humble. "This is what I meant when I said to come boldly to the throne of grace," Jesus explained. "Not with arrogance, but with the confidence of a beloved child approaching their perfect Father." He then revealed something about the timing of prayer that shocked me. "Watch what happens when my children try to schedule their prayer life," Jesus said. I saw people setting aside specific times for prayer, which was good, but then feeling guilty when they prayed at other times, as if those prayers weren't as official. I want them to understand, Jesus said, that every moment can be a prayer moment. Every thought can be directed toward heaven. They don't need to schedule an appointment with their Father. I'm always listening. Then he showed me something about distractions during prayer that completely changed my perspective. I saw people getting frustrated when their minds wandered during prayer, feeling like they were failing. Watch this, Jesus said, showing me how heaven sees these moments. To my amazement, I saw how even these distractions could become prayers when people simply offered them to God instead of feeling guilty about them. Tell them, Jesus said, that I'm not looking for perfect focus. I'm looking for honest hearts that keep turning back to me, even when their thoughts wander. But the most shocking revelation came when Jesus showed me how heaven sees what we call unanswered prayers. I saw prayers that people thought were ignored or rejected, but from heaven's perspective, they were being answered in ways far beyond what was asked for. Look carefully, Jesus said, showing me someone praying for a specific job. They didn't get the job, and they felt their prayer was unanswered. But from heaven's view, I could see that God was protecting them from what would have been a disastrous situation and preparing something far better. This is why trust is so crucial in prayer, Jesus explained. When my children trust my heart, even when they don't understand my ways, they position themselves to receive my best. He showed me how many prayers are answered differently than expected, because God sees what we can't see and loves us too much to give us less than His best. I saw prayers for relationships that weren't granted because God was protecting people from harm. I saw prayers for success that were answered with growth opportunities instead of immediate results. Tell them, Jesus said, that every prayer is answered. Sometimes the answer is yes, sometimes it's not yet, and sometimes it's, I have something better in mind. But no sincere prayer ever goes unanswered. Then Jesus showed me something about worship and prayer that left me amazed. Watch what happens when prayer begins with worship, he said. I saw how worship created what looked like an open heaven, making way for prayers to be received more fully. This is why David was a man after my own heart, Jesus explained. He understood that prayer isn't just about asking, it's about recognizing who I am and responding with love and adoration. He showed me how many people rush into their requests without first connecting with God's heart through worship. Then he showed me how prayer transforms when it begins with worship and gratitude.